Welcome to the FNL webcast. My name is Vicky Denton and I'm your host. Our guest today is Anne-Gaelle Morin. Anne is the R&D director of VeryOne's. She's based in Paris, France, and we're very glad to have her on our show today. Welcome to FNL webcast, Anne.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for thinking about a French woman for this podcast.
Tell us what you do at VeryOne and give us a little bit of background about yourself.
Sure. So for VeryOne, I'm the director of R&D. We are working in the mostly diesel fuels and additives. I've been hired 7 years ago, first as a product manager because we needed to expand our portfolio. That was my first goal. And then I moved on to this R&D position, which is a bit larger, where we work on applications for our work. We are working on understanding more how our products are working in a combustion chamber, because we're, again, working with fuels, so we have to understand combustion chamber. And my team is mostly externalized. We belong to a bigger company that has to do other stuff than we do. We're definitely a worldwide company for additives, diesel additives. When I came in the company, they were mostly making one big cetane improver product. Cetane improver is something to help ignition of diesel. It's a compression. Diesel ignites under compression, as you most likely know. And this additive is helping the diesel to ignite better. It's been ongoing for 40 years. And when I came in, it was the main product. We didn't even know how it worked. We just know it worked. However, because it had been ongoing for many years, we didn't know if it would stay forever, if we needed to diversify, to find something else. So that's how it was 7 years ago. Since then, with my team, we've grown so much, have grown so much personally, because I've learned so much too. But we've learned how it works. We know how to make it different. We know how this tiny molecule is actually a rock star chemically. I love chemistry. I love complicated chemistry. I'm coming from a heterogeneous catalysis background, from exosystem background. And when I saw this molecule that was so simple, and I had been given the goal to make it different, to improve, to have new products, and I was like, piece of cake. This is such a simple molecule, we can make better. And we've done much more complicated. And at the end, this molecule is great. So it's not going to be replaced very fast. However, we grew our portfolio over the last years to have other additives and to be able to not only rely on one single molecule, even if we make a lot of it and we distribute it everywhere in the world, and that we are the leader for cetane improver, even if we're French and producing out of south of France, delivering everywhere.
This is a very specialized field because a lot of companies actually produce more than one type of additive. But I guess VeryOne is very specialized in the sense that you're focused on one specific fuel additive.
Yeah, we are very specialized, and this is why I was hired. We were trying to diversify.
Yeah, and today, how is the diesel market globally?
I think everyone is wondering about that. I've been asked a lot about that. Obviously, from Europe standpoint, you can feel that diesel is going to decline. But there is about light duty applications. So passenger cars, diesel, they're going to be gone, which is sad because they were perfect cars. But heavy duty is not going to disappear. The solutions that we are trying to find for long haul, heavy haul, are not good enough. Diesel is a beautiful source of energy, and the way the engines have been designed to use it is not perfect, obviously, but for now it's still the best. So Is it going to be replaced slowly but surely by renewable diesel? Is it going to be replaced by other fuels such as hydrogen? Is it going to be replaced by electricity? Mostly some part of heavy duty application will be, but diesel will not disappear like that, and it's not going to be disappear by 2035 in Europe. That's clear. And then there's Asia, then there's the Americas, and these parts of the world, they're not ready to change yet. So we believe that for the next 10 years, there's not going to be a reduction of use of or production of diesel. Maybe after that, there's going to be a decline because there's going to be some ways to replace it. I mean, we're resilient. We will find ways to replace heavy haul applications, for example. But for now, hydrogen or fuel cells are not ready. Electrical batteries or full electrical is not ready. Biomass, gas, in my opinion, in terms of carbon footprint, not perfect. And then the quantity available to replace diesel is not ready. So do we need to find a way to stop using fossil fuels because it's going to be ending at some point? Yes. But is there a perfect solution to replace diesel? For now, no. And most likely it's going to be replaced by different solutions, not just one simple one.
Now, in the United States, there's been a lot of progress being made in increasing the capacity or the production output of renewable diesel.
Yeah, true.
They are considered drop-in fuel, aren't they?
They are considered a dropping fuel. They have. I'm part of the CRC group in the US, and we're actually having a working group right now on renewable and biodiesel. They have some caveat. You have lubricity issues, for example, or things like that. It's a beautiful renewable diesel. It's a beautiful fuel. Don't get me wrong. It's, however, a synthetic fuel, so it's going to be a lot more expensive than diesel. That's clear. The problem is going to be the availability of the feedstock. You're going to have competition between SAF, like the kerosene airplane fuels. They're going to need to be replaced as well. For now, there's no other solution than synthetic fuels with the same feedstock as renewable diesel. So there's going to be a competition for these feedstocks, which are going to be vegetable oil like soy or rapeseed or palm. But it's a finite quantity. So as beautiful as it is, most likely the feedstock is going to be going to SAF. It's going to be to aviation fuel. Because there's absolutely no other solution for kerosene replacement right now.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of what I see, at least in the announcements being made, is refineries are really, when they make an announcement for renewable diesel, the refinery is being configured also to produce sustainable aviation fuel.
Yes, yeah.
So definitely, it's the same thing in any refinery where you know you can produce SAF, or you can produce renewable diesel, or you can produce renewable gasoline.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's a matter, I guess, of demand, supply, and pricing.
Absolutely. And I was reading, actually, as I was waiting yesterday, I was reading an article about the availability of feedstock, and there's going to be, by 2030, is going to be already very complicated to find the right feedstock for all the renewable fuels that we want to move forward toward the 2050 goals. So we believe, I mean, again, renewable diesel is a beautiful, chemical species too. I mean, the way it's done, though, it's completely different from using a fossil oil and being distillating and separating in different fractions. It's actually synthesis. So it's more expensive. It's different process. So the refiners have to change their plants. It's not just having a different feed. It's really a different process. So the whole world is changing. It's very exciting, I believe, as a chemist at least.
Yeah. So basically, I guess one question is the output, the renewable diesel, how much variation would it be depending on feedstock? For example, there's been a project in the EU that I think the first phase was completed between the Energy Institute and Concawe. Concawe is the group of refiners in the EU looking at waste streams. How different, for example, would renewable diesel be from waste stream versus from biomass? Would they essentially be entirely different, or just some minor differences?
There's going to be, I mean, from the start as a raw material, they're going to be slightly different. They're going to be, for example, more dirty if you're going from waste stream. So you're going to have to clean it up before it goes into the process of being transformed into mostly paraffinic, branch paraffinic species. At the end, it's going to be pretty much the same. But from the beginning, you're going to have different processes to clean it up and then to break it down to what you want at the end. So when you take oils from different feedstock, for example, from rapeseed or from soy, you have a different distribution of fatty acids. And then again, in the process, you're breaking them down to make it something very similar at the end. But during the process, though, you're going to have to break them down in different ways. So the waste oil that is being used these days, it really needs to be cleaned up. It's not called waste by chance. It has been used, and you have to filter it. You have to remove everything that cannot be used in the production of the renewable oil. So again, it's expensive. It's a process. I mean, they know how to do it perfectly, I believe, but it's still very different from using fossil oil.
And how do you see the differences in the feedstock affecting basically your business? So you have one particular product, you have more now. Maybe we can talk about the other products after this. Would you essentially be selling a different cetane improver because it's a different feedstock and a different
I
diesel?
believe that the usage of renewable diesel, well, two things. First, renewable diesel has a natural cetane that is much higher than natural diesel. So sometimes as a fuel, as a drop-in fuel, if you look at regulations, you're not going to need cetane improver in renewable diesel. Because the cetane is going to be higher than the regulations, period. Now, is renewable diesel in need of additives? Maybe. Why do I say that? We've seen some studies where in legacy engines, renewable diesel is doing fine as a drop-in. In the new engines that have very tight calibration and closed loop and EGR, etc., maybe renewable is actually not as good as we expected it to be, at least in terms of engine out pollutants like NOx, etc. So in that case, it may need, like diesel actually, something that would help stabilize the combustion. And in that case, it would require a cetane improver. The cetane improver, we've demonstrated over the last years that it's not just here to help ignition, it's really here to help a full combustion event. It's starting a process of stabilizing the combustion and propagating the flame that is going to be helping in a diesel or in a renewable diesel. This is something that we are actually working on to demonstrate right now. If you look at regulations only and you just want to reach some cetane number, you are not going to need cetane improver when you use renewable diesel. If you look at other issues like stabilizing an EGR system because you need to have the lower NOx emission, then yes, you're going to get a cetane improver.
So EGR was introduced in Euro 4 or Euro 5?
I think it would depend on the OEM, but I think you would start to see EGR already for Euro 4 in some applications.
And then now we have Euro 6, but very soon
Euro 7 even.
We're gonna have Euro 7. So
yeah.
So how would that progression be in terms of requirements for fuels? Or
I think it's something that would actually many regulators will need to start discussing. If you think of how tight the regulation are becoming at the exhaust, you're going to think to make it tighter at the entrance of the engine. If fuel makers hear me, they're going to hate me right now. But the fact is, you cannot ask an engine manufacturers to find solution to be so tight and to control their combustion so tightly that at the exhaust, and then the exhaust system is going to be there, that you have almost no emissions at the end. You're going to have CO2 emissions, obviously, because it's oxidation of hydrocarbons, but you have no pollutants left. If you look at a diesel engine or a gasoline engine, you're not going to have particles, you're not going to have NOx, you're not going to have unburnt HCs, you're not going to have COs. Euro 7 is going to be looking at N2Os. In the NOx, they're going to start looking at methane. In Europe, they have looked at it in the US before, at least in California before. But so exhaust has to be so tight and so controlled that obviously what you're feeding into the engine is going to be needed to be much more controlled, I believe. And I believe that maybe the regulations on what is entering the engine should change if we want to go tighter. Now, we also know that the combustion engine is going to eventually die. So do we want to tighten the regulations on fuels before those combustion engine die? I don't know.
And this is actually one of the points being made by some I would say stakeholders, right? Why bother with Euro 7?
Yeah, the question has been ongoing.
Yes. When is Euro 7 supposed to be finalized?
I think you're asking me a question that I may not be able to answer, but I think it's by 2027, maybe. It depends on it's a new engine, if it's a new application or an older application, but I think by 2027 it should be there. Which is it's going to be tough and very expensive to be able to deal with this exhaust. I mean, I'm coming from the exhaust treatment world, which is very technical and very complicated and complex. So, but it's also very expensive. You rely on catalysts. Sometimes that would be PGM catalyst. So obviously precious metals are expensive, but even if it's not precious metals catalysts such as zeolites, they are so complex structure and materials, beautiful materials, by the way, but they're almost more expensive than the precious metal catalyst. So at the end, to clean up the exhaust of an combustive engine is becoming so complex and so expensive that I'm not even sure people are going to want to purchase this kind of applications. That say, electrical cars are still very expensive too. So, or fuel cells are going to be very expensive too.
So the scenario is basically, it seems like diesel is only going to be around for applications where anything else would not be possible.
Yeah, we believe so. I believe so. Maybe it's personal, but trying to get my own opinion on that, and I believe it's still going to be there for a while, but not in all the applications where it is now.
Or I guess the other scenario, Anne, is that diesel will be around, but perhaps in different regions of the world, not in Europe.
Maybe not in Europe, but you have to think about how you produce diesel for now. I'm not talking about renewable diesel. If you need diesel, you're going to basically produce gasoline as well and kerosene as well. So if you only need diesel and gasoline is not going to be needed because it's mostly needed in light duty application that by 2035 are not going to be sold anymore in Europe, for example. Where is diesel going to come from? I think it's a question that we need to ask ourselves, and that people kind of forget. People forget that diesel is not being produced alone.
Well, that's a very good point. And in fact, it's interesting when you look at the history of refining in Europe, how many refineries have been closed down in the last 20 years, and how much imported products are actually coming into Europe. I don't have the exact numbers at the tip of my fingers.
But I don't either, but it's already a lot.
Yeah, it's companies are no longer investing in refineries in Europe because of the pending regulations, and we don't know what the complete picture will be like. So most of the investments in refineries have been made in the last 20 years in Asia Pacific. Yeah. So that seems to be the market. That and
it's
Africa?
That's a good question. We've been trying to follow what's happening in Africa, and for now it's hard to see what's happening. There's a lot of geopolitics being thrown in this the question as well. But the fact is, OEMs in Europe, they are moving their combustion engine facilities, expertise, benches in Northern Africa. And they are keeping and changing their plans and expertise in Europe toward electricity or electrical mobility, hybrids and fully electricals. But everything else, I have friends, I've been working in this industry for many years, and their jobs are changing completely. Some of them had to transfer all their expertise to Moroccan plants or Moroccan labs. So it seems that this combustion expertise that Europe would have, whether it's diesel or gasoline, is being transferred to Africa, at least Northern Africa. And will the production of fuels move there too? They have the capacity, like Algeria. They have a lot of oil that they can use and change. They have big companies doing that already, and transferring to Europe. So maybe it's going to be the solution. Yes, in terms of geographics, it's not so far from Europe. You have already lots of routes to bring in fuels from Africa into Europe. But the fact is, and it's something that we were a bit surprised to see, but with COVID, actually, the refinery closure have accelerated in Europe. We didn't need as much fuels. Their yield and their profit dropped tremendously because we were not allowed to move anymore for months at the time, and so they stopped production. And for some of them, then they decided to never restart them. So COVID has accelerated that process of transferring the production of fuels from Europe to other places. The capacity, like Total has again closed the plant close to the Parisian area refineries to transfer it to renewables. but the output is going to be so much lower than what it was as an oil refinery. So where is this capacity going to go? I agree with you that most likely it could be coming from Africa.
Yeah,
at least Northern Africa.
Yeah, and actually, China has put in a lot of capacity too. You know, even I guess 10 years ago, even as far back as 5 years ago, and obviously because these are state-owned oil companies, although they do have net zero ambitions, they're still expanding their 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 oil refineries, so they're not going away.
No, they're expanding, but they're using it. They're not exporting it so much. I mean, China is still in expansion right now. So when we look actually at the usage of diesel, we see increase in China in the coming 10 to 20 years because the whole business, the truck applications are increasing. The transport within China is only increasing for the next 10 to 20 years. And for now, again, trucks are not going to be replaced by fuel cells or electrical trucks. As beautiful as the technology would be, but it's not happening. So China needs to increase their capacity because they need it.
Yeah. What do you think of hydrogen as a possible replacement for diesel engines?
I used to be 10 years ago, or even maybe before, I thought fuel cells would actually replace diesel engines, gasoline engines as well. Today, I'm less convinced for many reasons. First, I studied that a lot. Hydrogen is hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most energetical material that exists in the universe. However, it's a very, very tiny molecule. It's the smallest two in the universe. So we need to have a way to store it and to move it around. That is going to be tough. Right now, the application that we're seeing with hydrogen have to have 350 bars, I believe, tanks to keep it compressed, and even like that, it's still a gas. We're looking into, the industry, I think, is going to move into 700 bars containers or tanks for trucks or for cars, for fuel cells, which is going to be hard to handle. And hydrogen has a way to evade because it's tiny, as beautiful as it is. And because it's very energetic, but because it's so small, it's the energetic output that you get for 30 kilos, for example, kgs of hydrogen are still much smaller than the energy output that you get from a full tank of diesel. So because of that, I believe less in fuel cell than I used to, even if I would want for it to work because it's beautiful. Now, I think the industry is working a lot now. I've seen it in the lab I'm working with on hydrogen combustion, so direct combustion of hydrogen and not fuel cells anymore, where you have a system of batteries and etc. The prime of combustion, I believe, is you're still going to have pollutants from that. Because you have combustion, you're still going to have NOx and things that you're going to have to deal with. So first, you need to produce hydrogen, and you need to produce it green or blue, which is not easy for now. It's going to require a lot of electricity. And then you're going to have to transport it, you're going to have to store it, you're going to have to transfer it into tanks. So it's not going to be easy. It's done already. You have hydrogen fueling stations in in California, you have some in Norway, in Europe. So you can do it, but it's not going to be easy. And you're still going to need to produce it. For now, it's great. It's being produced from oil.
Yes, from natural gas mostly, right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned that one of the reasons you were hired by VeryOne's 7 years ago was to develop other products. So what other products have you developed during this time that I assume is actually a response to the energy transition?
We have basically expanded our diesel additive portfolio to what it would be for another additive maker. So we're able to have lubricity improvers, we are able to have antioxidant, we're able to have antistatics. So this is what we have expanded to. So it was basically, we have a big network of sales in the world. We discussed it because you've met some of my colleagues in other conferences, but we are again, strangely, we are pretty much everywhere in the world. So our strength is our network of customers. So we kind of banked on that and went to see our customers with the expansion of a full portfolio of diesel additives.
Now, you mentioned lubricity. When actually the world reduced, when I say world, I mean the refining industry, where we're told by regulators to reduce the sulfur in diesel fuel. One of the results of that was actually less lubricity in the diesel fuel, which caused actually initially problems for diesel engines. Yeah. So the need for lubricity additives came about. But if we go with renewable diesel, and let's just say it's coming from vegetable oil, would there still be a need for a lubricity additive?
It's actually one of the needs that renewable diesel has. Renewable diesel, even if it's coming from vegetable oil, again, it's broken into smaller molecule, branch molecule, paraffinic molecule. You have no aromatics left in there, which is making it so beautiful, by the way. But it's almost like you can think about it as a solvent, as an organic solvent in a way, and it has actually low lubricity, so it requires help on lubricity if you don't want to break your engine.
Yeah, one of the other things
on that.
Yeah, one of the other things I was wondering is how much of diesel fuel being sold today is actually additized?
We believe that it's most of the fuel that is being additized, for many reasons, actually. So first, you have different qualities of fuel, right? You have what we call premium fuels, even for diesel, and more standard. You could think that the standard one would not be with additive. Most of them have additive, even the standard one, not the premium one. So they have additive like cetane improver. I mean, not all of them have cetane improver, but believe me, I know my business. Most of them have cetane improver, even in low cetane regulated countries like the US. So they have cetane improver, they have anti-static for safety reason. They have lubricity improvers. Not all of them, but many of them. Now, if you use biodiesel, not renewable diesel, biodiesel, so the FEM one, the fatty acid methyl esters one. So they have oxygen in there, and they have a much better lubricity than renewable diesel or standard diesel, desulfurized diesel, I would say. So if you have some percentage of biodiesel in there, you need less lubricity improver additive. The biodiesel, like in Europe, it's 7%, or in France, if refiners sell diesel without 7% of biodiesel, they are against the law and they have to pay an extra tax. So basically, they have 7% of biodiesel in there. So if you have biodiesel, you need a bit less of lubricity improver, because biodiesel is closer to the vegetable oil than renewable diesel. Renewable diesel is coming feedstock, but at the end it's totally different animal. Beautiful animal, but different animal.
Now, actually, talking about biodiesel, that's also kind of I would say, in Europe, because of the issue of land use, has become a very sensitive subject,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there are talks that maybe, the renewable energy directive in Europe should be repealed or revised so that ethanol or biodiesel should not be a requirement anymore to be blended into gasoline and diesel fuel.
Yeah, I think it's some of the problems that Europe is meeting right now is the land use. They had thought about it. This is why there was a limit in a way of usage of biodiesel up to 10% max. When you compare it to California, where they went straight for 20%. Now they are balancing it with renewable diesel, but the land usage was already entered in the equation in Europe, and this is why they limited the quantity. But now, and that includes ethanol for gasoline as well, there is a war happening in Europe, as you know. And because of that, we understand now all the intricacies of our land usage and how we depend on others for even for our fuel, but even for our food. So I think it's even accelerating the idea that we have to review our land usage, and do we put it into fuel? Do we put it into food? It's a big question that is being looked at. Again, biodiesel is different from renewable diesel, or it's the same for ethanol, but at the end, it's the same feedstock. So it's the same land.
Yeah, I guess you could say biodiesel and ethanol are really more like additives because they're blended into fossil fuels.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
now, is it going to change? I think it's a balance. Again, it's renewable, and it's something that, in terms of carbon intensity and carbon footprint, the Europe is looking at it. But I'm not sure where they're going to go with that. I think that it's too complex to make decisions. Do we want to reduce carbon footprints? In that case, we need the renewable, but do we want food at the same time? Yes, we do. Do we want biofuel, food where you have less output, but also less usage of chemicals to grow them or to improve the yield? This is also what Europe is looking at. And this morning I was listening to the French radio. We had a big drought this summer in France because the climate is changing and we are getting warmer. Because we're getting warmer, our access to water is changing completely, and it's changing completely for the agricultors, for agriculture. And people are actually now fighting to get access to water in some areas of France, so they can grow corn, for example, or beets for ethanol, or rapeseed for biodiesel. And this access to water, because it's changing, again, we are going to have to favor food versus fuel. Everything is changing.
Yes.
So it's so complex. It's access to land. It's access to obviously to water. We forget about it, but we used to have a lot of water in our areas of Europe, and obviously we're getting closer to issues that southern of Europe have been having for years, but we have to deal with it. Again, people are fighting, like really fighting with their hands and their tools just to get access to water in France. Never happened before, never seen that before.
Yeah, and I think the other issue that came up with the Russian invasion of Ukraine really is energy security.
Yeah.
The whole world basically, we forgot all about energy security until February, when suddenly access to cheap natural gas in Europe, were disrupted.
Yes.
So you have a lot of political issues in Europe, much more than any other part of the world right now.
It's very complex. So I'm happy I'm not a regulator, to be honest with you. I'm following it from the side, obviously, because it's my job, and also it's where my interests lie. It's a change in the world that is super interesting to be part of. But at the same time, it's so complex. I don't know how they can regulate with all the parameters in there. They're going to have to make choices. We have a lot of things ongoing to measure our carbon footprint in the industry in Europe. It should be everywhere in the world, but we're starting in Europe a lot. And we have a specialist here who's been talking about that, and he's very. This guy is actually very concrete about the changes that we need to do, and also how society is going to need to evolve, but also being realistic about how much we want to evolve. I mean, we like our comfort. I like my hot water in the morning for my shower. I like the comfort that my electrical heaters are giving me. And I'm French, so we get a lot of our electricity from nuclear electricity, which is, I think it's a chance, but I'm aware that it has a bad environmental footprint too, because of the waste, of the nuclear waste that we need to deal with. So I'm not going to give up electricity. I'm not going to give up warm water, to be honest. But this guy is saying now the only solution that we see, again, oil is a finite product. At the end, oil and coal, we're not going to find anymore on our planet. We're going to use all of it. So we have to find solution to use less because we need it. Not just for fuels. I mean, oil is everywhere in our world. Chemistry, organic chemistry is and everywhere around us. Plastics, but pharmaceuticals, all this kind of stuff. We're not going to give up. So we need to decline. His whole thing is we need to be realistic as a society. We want to evolve, but we will keep our comfort. We want to keep some comfort. But at the same time, we are going to have the only solution is toward economic decline, and we're us using less energy, us using less matter, and I hate to hear it, to be honest. Again, I like my comfort, so I'm not going. I know as a human being, I cannot give it up. I see my children; they're not going to give up either. They love this comfort. At the same time, we're going to have to find a solution to make it last, and also to make it expand to other parts of the world. Because right now we have parts of the world that are not getting as comfortable as we are right now. We're going to have to find solution. The only way I think is going to be like this guy is saying, which is some economical decline that we need to accept.
I think one last question, and before we end this very interesting conversation, is what is the most exciting part of your job? What keeps you going every day? What are the interesting things you're working on right now?
For me, the most exciting part of my job is being part of the energetic transformation. It came slowly, but it's accelerating. As a chemist, as a human being, it's being part of it is super exciting. We're going to have to find new product for the company to move into this new world, and we're working very actively on that. We have found very interesting leads already, new products and new fuels. So new combustion, so exciting to learn about these new things. At least for me, I know I'm a kind of a geek in that matter, but being part of that, just personally, is super exciting too. No, I think it is. I still have about 20 years to work. So I'm going to have to be part of this transformation, whether it's electrical or hydrogen or decarbonated fuels that we are seeing for marine applications. that's the most exciting part for me. That's what keeps me going every day, even if sometimes it's a bit tough.
Are we close to finding a solution, or we're just getting started?
I think the solution is going to be multiple, but there are solutions because we're really resilient and we're a very smart species. So we're going to find solution to make our species survive. The planet will survive, but our species will survive in different ways. Maybe it will, most likely it would be in a warmer environment, but even like that, we will find solutions, and we will find solutions for our mobility. There are some coming up, and again, we're really smart. We have a lot more calculation power than we had 50 years ago because of our computers, because we were smart as a species again. So I believe in that, and I'm really happy to be part of that transformation. I hope I will continue to be.
Well, Anne, thank you so much for your time and your patience in getting started. We started very slowly today. My apologies.
It's okay.
But
no worries.
But it's been great talking to you. You're the kind of person I think you can talk to the whole day.
Thank you.
So many topics. Very, I think over a very well-rounded person. Thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
hopefully this won't be the last.
Thank you. I hope to see you soon too.
Great. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.